Now here will be a good group of enemies I can talk about my sub-weapon cycle. So sub-weapon cycle is a cycle of cooldowns, that's my nickname for it, that lets you fire non-stop, basically forever. Oop, didn't mean to do that, I was trying to keep him at bay. Get out of here. So you can start with any weapon. Starts the cooldown. This is a good one just because of all the guys here. First thing you do is you fire a stare, then a Gatling, then a laser. By then your stare and Gatling will have cooled down. You can follow it up with a Flamethrower. Now you can either reposition. You could see I could see the enemies on the screen there, so I didn't need to reposition to anyone. But now it's back to stare, Gatling, and then I guess there's another one over there. So yep, laser, stare, Gatling, and then I think we're done with the enemies here. It doesn't look like it, but I can't see him due to the Flamethrower. Anyway, so that's the sub-weapon cycle. When you're fighting a boss, if you have teammates, then obviously they will be keeping it in check, making him stand there so you can just blow the crap out of him with your guns. Stand off screen and just let loose the sub-weapon cycle, and you will be doing maximum damage to the most enemies on the screen or bosses. Another good teammate, let me get back to teammates here. The problem, there's some bad teammates because they knock things on the ground, like rangers and grapplers make actually pretty poor teammates for a launcher, because most of our stuff, like monks, you can kind of imagine like how a monk will just punch things to death. Well, our Gatling, stare, Flamethrower, they all do that. They take standing enemies and they deal tons of damage to them. So when you're with, say, other launchers are good teammates too. Don't use your laser, it'll knock things down. Same goes for monks. Monks obviously make excellent teammates. They have a lot of vacuums. Vacuums are always good for us. We don't like to fight stuff directly, so they go out in front and they just hit stun everything basically to death. And we don't have to worry about it. So you can see standing targets, we have plenty of hits we can dish out. The last awesome teammate, you know, there's average teammates, but the last above average teammate is a Crusader. You get a Crusader, you're going to start doing damage you didn't think was possible. You'll be doing 70k lasers, all kinds of crazy stuff that really shouldn't be possible. Ooh, let's get out of fire. Fire bad. Oh, of course. Oh, that was a really good combo. He rarely does that. So anyway, Crusaders will give you health. They will give you great damage. They will tank. They're really tanky. The problem is they won't attack. So it's basically up to you. You have levels where you're not good. Keep that in mind if you're with a Crusader. That's important. Okay, so this guy looks like he's... I probably should have started with this, but let's go ahead and do it now. I've switched cannons. Let's see to my Herculeum ore. They give me the +1 to my Ancient Trigger. So I'm going to line this guy up. That's the most important part because they can get out of it. I'm going to take damage from those hands. But now that the Ancient Trigger's going, I go ahead and I alternate buttons, you know, XA, like I told you in the other video. And that lets me do a ton of damage to this guy. So anyway, done screwing around with him. Time to finish him. Sub-weapon cycle. I will. Let's see, what can we do here? We can freeze him. Freezing is an excellent way to keep bosses in check. Deals tons of damage. Off X-axis, use your nuke. On X-axis, use your sub-weapons. Obviously. We'll finish him with a, well, we could do a fully charged laser. Let's do a fully charged extruder. Bye! 96,600 damage. Gotta love this strength bonus on this Altar of Infinity. It's super fun. So I think I've hit on everything. I talked about Ancient Trigger. Oh, I was using my wrong cannon there. I switched to the cannon to get one more level. That gives me 7%. Then you tap your X key and your Awakening key, alternating, not at the same time, and that fully charges your cannon in about 2 to 3 hits, which gives you 13 or 14, since it only does 16 total. 13 or 14 of the big orange shots, which do tons of damage. I mean, you just saw life bars disappear. He went underground there about halfway through, so I wouldn't really worry about that. You do insane damage to him when he's up in the air. So there you go. You got your sub-weapon cycle. You know, stare Gatling, then you just alternate laser, then Flamethrower. So between each one, there's a stare and a Gatling. You'll notice I didn't really use any cubes. Nothing like, you know, Lancer or, you know, a lot of nukes unless they were necessary. I like to keep nuke off cooldown because it can be important. You might, something might be off your axis, and you're like, you need to die up there, and you just don't want to get involved in that fight. Don't just blow it all the time. It's not actually that much damage. The Gatling, if you do the math, does something like 100k damage to a ton of enemies. It's really ridiculous. 5,000 apiece times, 100. That's, 500,000 damage to a group of enemies. And a nuke is not going to do 500,000 damage, no matter how much you want it to. Neither is an extruder, honestly. 500,000 damage is a fifth of what the extruder did. The thing is, the extruder did 100k, and that's only because of the strength bonus. It really doesn't do 100k. But it only does 100k to very, certain things. So there you go. So my time's up here. I'm going to go ahead and end this here. Hope you guys enjoyed the PvE tips and tricks video. Hopefully it taught you how to survive some of those tough levels between 35 and 50. It's when we really need mana. I still don't get Firearm Mastery. Resist the temptation. Unless you just plan to do that. I mean, if that's part of your build, go for it. But if you're like, man, I need mana, what do I do? Oh, here's this skill. Please don't. You can see that I pretty much almost never run out of mana. I ran that whole thing, and I was unleashing sub-weapons to basically show you guys how to do it. I could have done that with no mana at all. The only, maybe a couple of mana potions at the end, just because it's, it's pretty long. It was like a 10-minute dungeon. But a couple of mana potions for a full clear, it's probably about the equivalent there, is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, you can see I got 224 on my bottom bar. So anyway, so that covers that. We got our sub-weapon cycle. Great way to cycle through weapons. You can basically do that indefinitely. By the time you get back around to the fire pillar, that's the longest cooldown. If you need to slide or reposition at all, your fire pillar will be ready. I think it's about 0.5 seconds off from an infinite combo. I do recommend fully charging the laser. The extra 40 to 50%, depending on how many ranks you have in charge, is totally worth it, in my opinion. There's nothing you could do in that 0.8 seconds that would get you a half of a laser beam. At least, in my opinion, it wouldn't, because you'd still be stuck with that half second more after the fire pillar. I don't like Flamethrower, like I said in PvP. It's simply because it doesn't push things away from you, and it doesn't synergize as well. You notice all my stuff is solid X-axis moves. I don't really change my Y-axis much. That's because everything synergizes. Everything I have synergizes with that. Even Lancer would be better than Flamethrower, in my opinion. But I don't like that move either. I don't feel like it does enough damage. It's really hard to compete with things like Gatling and Fire Pillar. They just do so much damage. So anyway, PvE tips and tricks. Hope that helped you guys. I'm going to go ahead and post PvPs now. Really actual matches where you get to see start to finish me beat up people. So if you guys have any other questions about PvE, feel free to ask. I wouldn't mind making another one of these. I just wanted to make a little primer just to, go ahead and show you guys what's up in that regard, and try to impart my knowledge, since I have managed to get through 70 levels of that as well. Also, you can see I'm ranked 4 now. Woot, moving up. Alright, I will end the video here. You guys have a good one, and hope that helped.